I wasn't invited to my sister's wedding, a snub that broke my heart. Then, days later, footage of her new husband slapping her in front of everyone went viral. And he had no idea that he'd just made an enemy of a lawyer who was about to destroy his entire life. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The silence of my apartment on that Saturday was a physical weight. It was Maya's wedding day, my little sister. And I was sitting in my living room in sweatpants, staring at a stack of depositions. I had been officially, painfully uninvited. The embossed invitation I'd found on my doorstep 6 weeks ago, with a brutal handwritten, "Do not come Maya" on the back, was still sitting on my counter, a constant, sharp reminder of the rift between us. I tried to work. As a legal aid attorney, I was used to high-stress situations, to clients in crisis, to people at their absolute worst. But this pain was different. It was a hollow, lonely ache. I had practically raised Maya after our mom died, and now, a man I'd known for less than a year had managed to sever that bond completely. The day passed in a blur of forced productivity and quiet grief. I went to bed telling myself it was over. The wedding had happened. She was married. Life would go on. Then Tuesday afternoon happened. My phone, sitting on my desk, buzzed with a text from our cousin, Sarah. My stomach clenched. I hadn't heard from that side of the family since Maya had cut me out. The text read, "Oh my God, Aaron, have you seen this? I am so sorry." Below it was a link to a video on a gossip site. My hand trembled as I clicked it. The title was "Wedding Day Disaster, Groom Slaps Bride." My heart stopped. It was them. The video was shaky, clearly from a guest's phone. I saw Maya, looking radiant in her dress, laughing as she held a piece of wedding cake. She playfully smeared a tiny bit of frosting on her new husband Marcus's chin. His smile didn't just fade, it vanished, replaced by a mask of cold fury. He grabbed her wrist. I heard her gasp, "Marcus, stop, you're hurting." And then he slapped her. It wasn't a tap. It was a full, open-handed strike that snapped her head to the side and sent her veil flying. The music stopped. The video was filled with the sound of collective gasps, and then it cut out. I stared at the black screen, my breath frozen in my lungs. The grief of the weekend was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp, terrifying rage. The betrayal was worse than just being uninvited. I had been shut out while my sister was walking straight into a monster's arms. My fingers fumbled as I dialed Maya's number. I didn't even know what I was going to say. I just needed to hear her voice to know she was safe. Straight to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Maya and Marcus. We're off on our honeymoon and we'll get back to you soon." Her voice was cheerful, bubbly, and it made my blood run cold. I tried again, voicemail. I called our cousin Sarah. She picked up on the first ring, her voice a panicked whisper. "Aaron, it's horrifying. Aunt Linda said he dragged her out of the reception. No one has heard from her since. They were supposed to leave for Italy this morning." "Keep trying her," I said, my own voice sounding distant and unfamiliar. "Call her friends, call everyone, find out where she is." I hung up and sank back into my chair, the video playing on a loop in my mind. The slap, the gasp, the look on his face. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a momentary loss of temper. It was control. It was ownership. I remembered my last real conversation with Maya 2 months ago. It had escalated into the worst fight of our lives. I had voiced my concerns about Marcus, about how quickly he'd pushed for the wedding, how he seemed to be isolating her. "You don't even know him, Aaron," she had screamed, her face red with anger. "He's a venture capitalist. He's brilliant. You're just a glorified social worker who's jealous you'll never find love." Her words had cut deeper than she knew. But as I sat there, staring at the phone, my legal mind finally pushing through the panic, one thought crystallized. She was wrong. I wasn't jealous. I was terrified. I had seen his type before in my office, sitting across from frightened clients. And Marcus, in his arrogance, had forgotten one crucial thing. I'm a lawyer. And I'm very, very good at my job. My bond with Maya wasn't just sisterhood, it was a foxhole. When our mom passed away from cancer, I was 22, just starting law school, and Maya was only 14. I became her guardian, her confidant, her protector. I paid for her art school, cheered her on as she built her graphic design portfolio, and was the first person she called when she landed her first big client. We were us. Until Marcus. He had came into her life 9 months ago at a gallery opening. On the surface, he was perfect. 36, impeccably dressed, with a disarming smile and a portfolio of investments that sounded impressive. He called himself a venture capitalist, specializing in tech startups. I met him at a dinner at my apartment. He complimented my home, my career, but his eyes were cold. Legal aid, he'd mused, swirling his wine. That must be so. Challenging, defending people who can't help themselves. It wasn't a compliment, it was a dismissal. Later that evening, while Maya was in the kitchen, he'd casually brought up the beach house. Maya mentioned you two co-own that lovely place your mother left you. Prime real estate. Ever thought of selling? The market is high. It's not for sale, I'd said, my tone a little too sharp. It's family. He just smiled. Of course, family is everything. From that night on, I was the enemy. I was negative. I was trying to control her. I was stuck in the past. He systematically dismantled her relationships, starting with me. He convinced her to quit her job to consult for one of his startups, effectively cutting off her financial independence. He was polished, charismatic, and utterly disingenuous. He was a predator, and I, the one person who saw him clearly, was the one person she refused to listen to. And now, that video proved my worst fears were just the beginning. The video was my turning point. The grieving sister was gone, replaced by the attorney. I was no longer just Aaron. I was counsel for the plaintiff. My first call was to my old mentor, a man who had moved from public defense to private investigation. "Jim," I said, "I have a new client. It's my sister. I need a full workup on a man named Marcus Thorne, and I need it yesterday." My clever trap wasn't a hidden document or a secret recording, it was my training. While Jim started digging into Marcus's public records, I started on the professional end. Marcus claimed to be a venture capitalist. That meant he had to be registered. He'd need a Series 7, a Series 63 something. I spent 4 hours combing through FINRA's broker check database and SEC filings. Nothing. No one named Marcus Thorne was licensed to trade, manage, or sell securities. He didn't exist in the financial world. The term venture capitalist was a smokescreen. Jim called me back that evening. "You're not going to like this, Aaron." "I already don't," I said. "He's clean on the criminal side," Jim said, "but his civil record is a mess. He's been sued 3 times in the last 5 years by business partners for fraud. All suits were settled out of court with an NDA. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. What else? He's been married twice before. Both were short-term. The first one in Arizona, the second in Oregon. What happened? That's the interesting part, Jim said. In both cases, the wives, both women who had recently inherited property, ended up selling their assets to an LLC he controlled. They sold for pennies on the dollar. He'd flip the property, dissolve the LLC, and move on. He's not a venture capitalist, Aaron. He's a romance con artist. My blood ran cold. The beach house. He wasn't just after Maya, he was after our mother's legacy. "Jim," I said, my voice hardening, "I need you to find one of those wives, the one from Oregon. Find her and tell her I'm a lawyer who needs to talk to her about the man who ruined her life." It took another day to find Maya. Our cousin Sarah finally got a text back, a room number at a hotel near the airport. Not an exotic resort in Italy, but a sterile airport Marriott. He was keeping her close. I went alone. I knocked on the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Go away, Marcus, I don't want to talk." Her voice was muffled raw. "Maya, it's me. It's Aaron." Silence, then the sound of the chain lock sliding back. The door opened a crack, then wider. She was a wreck. Her cheek was a sickly shade of purple and yellow, her eyes swollen from crying. She was still wearing the sweatpants and hoodie she'd probably thrown on to leave the reception. She didn't say anything. She just fell into my arms, sobbing. "I'm so stupid, Erin, I'm so stupid." "No," I said, guiding her inside and locking the door behind us. "You're not stupid, you're trapped." We sat on the edge of the bed. She told me how he'd been gaslighting her ever since, how she had embarrassed him, how she had provoked him, how he'd been so apologetic, so loving, and so terrifying all at once. He'd taken her phone to stop the mean messages, but she'd used her laptop to text Sarah when he went out for food. I didn't say "I told you so." I just opened my briefcase. "Maya, what I'm about to show you has nothing to do with us fighting," I said gently. "This is what I found out in the last 24 hours. I laid out the printouts, the lack of financial licenses, the civil suits for fraud, and then the marriage. Certificates from Arizona and Oregon." Her sobs quieted. She stared at the papers. Who are they?" "They're his other wives, Maya," I said, my voice firm. "He doesn't love you, he's a predator. And you're not his first. He's after the beach house." She looked up at me, the confusion in her eyes slowly hardening into the same cold rage I had felt. The spell was breaking. The moment Marcus realized Maya was with me, his mask of contrition evaporated. My phone lit up with a barrage of texts. "Marcus, you can't just take my wife. She's confused. Marcus, I'll have you disbarred for this, Erin. Kidnapping is a serious crime. Marcus, you're poisoning her against me. You'll regret this." I just screenshotted everyone and sent them to my pie, Jim. "He's predictable," I texted back. Jim, meanwhile, had worked a miracle. He found the second wife, Rebecca, living in Portland. She had been too ashamed and broken by the NDA to fight back. But when Jim told her about Maya and about the video, she was furious. She was ready to talk. She sent me a copy of her entire file, the original investment contract she'd signed, the fraudulent transfer of her deed, the threatening letters from his lawyer. It was Marcus's entire playbook, step by step. I brought Maya to my apartment, a place Marcus didn't know I'd moved to 6 months prior. She was still fragile, but the anger was growing. "He told me Rebecca was a crazy ex who stalked him," Maya whispered, staring at the affidavit Rebecca had signed and emailed to me. "They're always crazy, Maya," I said. "That's how they isolate you." The final confrontation was set by Marcus himself. Believing he could still charm his way out, he sent a text, "Let's be adults. A mediation, just us and Maya, at the cafe near your old office, tomorrow at noon." "He thinks he can still win," Maya said, her voice trembling. "I know," I replied, printing out the last of Rebecca's documents. "He's walking right into the fire." I texted Jim, "Get Rebecca on a plane, I'll pay for everything." The cafe was a public, neutral space. Marcus was already there when we arrived, sitting at a corner booth, nursing an espresso. He looked polished, concerned, and completely believable. He stood when he saw Maya, his face a mask of loving relief. "Maya, thank God, I've been so worried, your sister." "Save it, Marcus," I said, sliding into the booth across from him. Maya sat beside me, silent and rigid. "Erin, this is a family matter." "It stopped being a family matter when you assaulted her," I said, my voice low and sharp. "And it became a legal matter when I found this." I slid a thick accordion file across the table. "That," I said, "is my mediation." He opened it, his practiced smile faltered. He saw the printouts from FINRA, he saw the civil fraud complaints. His face paled when he saw the marriage certificates. "This is ridiculous, slander." "Is it?" a new voice cut in. Marcus looked up. A woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a steel spine was standing at our table. "Hello, Marcus," Rebecca said, pulling a chair up. "Remember me?" Marcus's face went white. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered. I saw the real him, a cornered, panicked rat. "You're violating the NDA," he hissed at her. "An NDA signed under duress and based on fraud isn't worth the paper it's printed on." I interjected calmly. And I'm guessing you don't want to explain to a judge why your venture capital firm looks identical to a criminal enterprise. Maya, baby, don't listen to them, he pleaded, turning to my sister. They're trying to destroy us. Maya looked at him, and I saw the last ounce of love for him die in her eyes. She had her moment of realization. This wasn't the man she loved. This was a stranger, a monster. Slowly, she twisted the large, gaudy diamond ring off her finger. She didn't throw it. She placed it calmly on top of the file. You will never touch me again, she said, her voice shaking but clear. And you will never, ever get your hands on my mother's house. We stood up. Rebecca and Maya walked out first. I paused, looking down at the shell of a man. Expect to be served, I said. Then I turned and left him alone with the evidence of his ruin. It turned out I wasn't the only lawyer Marcus had to worry about. The viral video had done more than just humiliate him. It had empowered his other victims. Once I filed for an annulment on grounds of fraud, using Rebecca's affidavit and the evidence of his predatory history. The story was picked up by a national news outlet. Within a week, 2 more women had come forward, one of them being his first wife from Arizona. The cascade of charges was swift. With the public video as proof of his violent nature and multiple victims testifying to a pattern of financial fraud, the district attorney had an ironclad case. Marcus was arrested, his bail set impossibly high. His downfall was as total as it was public. He lost everything because he had nothing real to lose. It was all built on lies. The annulment was granted in record time. Maya and I spent that summer at the beach house. It was quiet, healing. We painted the rooms, walked on the sand, and talked. We talked for hours, rebuilding the trust that Marcus had so systematically destroyed. Maya started designing again, her creativity returning as the trauma slowly faded. She was healing. We were healing. One evening, we sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. I'm sorry, Aaron, she whispered, her first real apology since it all began. I should have listened. You were manipulated, I said, taking her hand. He's a professional, it's what he does. I looked out at the water, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a year, but he forgot one thing. Maya looked at me, a small smile playing on her lips. What's that? He messed with a lawyer, I said, and he messed with her sister. He never stood a chance.